Palmer here. I'm so glad we got to do the Create-a-thon last night. To me, it was one of the highlights of my entire year. The ability to bring you got your business owners and your students together in one event was something I've been wanting to do for years. So thank you so much for letting me do that last night. So to start off today, I'm going to unpack a little bit. Let's talk about what we did last night and what it means. But first of all, let me tell you about my philosophy about teaching. A lot of people mistakenly believe there's two ways to teach people and do anything. You either put them in the shallow end of the pool or the deep end of the pool. Where they're wrong. They're wrong. There's the shallow end, the deep end, and the Atlantic Ocean. You don't want to be in the Atlantic Ocean. So when we throw you in the deep end like we did last night, it's because there's things we need to learn that sometimes we can only learn in a really intense model, and it looks like everyone's getting that. So let's talk about the customer discovery process and what we did. Let's think about this. Number one thing we didn't really talk that much about last night was a test, retest, but the whole thing really is test, retest. We're going to test, retest our customers, test, retest the problems, and test, retest the solutions. Now, you may be wondering, when we're doing the first part, Customer Discovery 1, we were talking about attributes. We were talking about facts, and we were talking about assumptions. We have facts, but we make lots and lots of assumptions. So the assumptions is what we test. We test, and that's going to be part of our product. Now, some of these things we can find on Google, some of them we don't. But what the thing is, the best thing to do is go and talk with people. And I think from your first exercise, I learned a lot about wallets. For instance, some of our students have a lot of money. I didn't know that. Anyway, what you assume how people use wallets is based upon your own personal experience, right? So the ability to get outside and do that type of deep interview, ask those why questions, why, is how we're going to get this information and how we're going to get this data, this really, really rich data that's going to help us understand. So think about this. Customer discovery, we're going to ask those deep questions, and we're going to get facts, we're going to get assumptions, and then from that, we'll get a problem statement. From the problem statement, we're going to go to solutions. Now, one thing people were asking last night, why am I putting all these Post-it notes? There's a lot of Post-it notes, Palmer. They're going all the way down. Well, my good friend Tom Cullen explained it to me this way. If we only let you guys put up 3 Post-it notes per person, everybody would pretty much have the same thing. Those are the very, very basic things that everybody thinks. But when you start going to 7, 8, 9, and 10, all of a sudden, your brain is perking. Your brain is operating, and you're realizing then that what you need to do is that these down here might offer your advantage to get that kind of competitive advantage you're looking at. That's what we're looking for, is 7, 8, and 9. And I think we saw that last night. We saw some really interesting ideas that as they emerged, it was like, oh, I would never have thought of that. Gee, that's pretty amazing. So that's what we're doing in the solution process. Once again, moving it through, and then, of course, testing that solution and retesting that solution, changing it as we go along. Now, one thing we did talk last night is something called minimum viable product, MVP. What we want to do is we want to get a product out that has the least number of features that we can go out there and start testing. In other words, instead of coming up with that perfect product, we want to come up with a product that's just good enough that we can go out there and talk to our early adopters. So, for instance, last night with Neighborhood School Dance, they were talking about their program of trying to attract older dancers in morning situations with social issues, with coffee and things like that. So those are all assumptions that we can start testing, but we can start doing it right away. Which leads us to our final one, our action list. Just don't sit there. Think about what we can do, and let's get things going. The faster we're able to get out the product or the service or version of that product service is the faster we can test. And likewise, let's think about assumptions. Why minimum viable product? Because we want just a few assumptions. If you build a product or service that's just filled with stuff, all of a sudden your list is so many assumptions and something goes wrong, you don't know what assumptions are wrong. So what we want to do is we want to test on just a few of those assumptions each time and verify they're the most important ones, right? So anyway, this is Palmer. I think I got to go right now. Oh, somebody's screaming for me. I accidentally threw them in the Atlantic Ocean. Palmer out.